Vanoggend gesels ek met Bhekani Zondo en hy is 'n landbouekonoom by die Nasionale Landboubemarkingsraad. Bhekani, welcome to GROOTplaas.
Greetings, Mia. Thank you very much for having me, and greetings to your viewers at home.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure having you here. Tell us about the EU Green Deal and how will this impact South Africa and its neighbours?
Thank you very much, Mia, for that question. So basically, globally, the negative effect of climate change has been intensifying, increasingly threatening food systems as well as human lives. And the expectation is that, the negative effect of climate change are likely to be so severe and expose millions of people's lives in danger of poverty, malnutrition, as well as food insecurity. So in 2019, the EU member states colluded to enact the EU Green Deal, the EU Green Deal to help them achieve climate neutrality by 2050. So such that they promote environmental sustainability while mitigating the negative effects of climate change through reducing greenhouse gases. So basically, the EU Green Deal is a set of policies that will help the EU achieve this target of climate neutrality by 2050. But at the center of the EU Green Deal is the farm to fork as well as the biodiversity strategy. Basically, the farm to fork strategy is the one that provides initiatives for the agricultural sector to ensure sustainable agro-food production while mitigating the effect of climate change through reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So basically, the farm to fork strategy also has a number of objectives that are envisaged to achieve in order to help the EU reach this target by 2050. So the EU Green Deal is likely to affect the South African producers or the South African agricultural sector as well as its neighbors, mainly because transitioning or adopting these new proposed strategies by the EU will not come cheaper. It will come probably at a hefty cost of compliance in terms of regulatory compliance, and mainly because within the EU Green Deal, there's something called the mirror clauses. The mirror clauses are actually set to actually level the playing field between the EU producers as well as producers outside of the EU. That it is actually meant to ensure that the rules, these new proposed strategies or rules, are actually applicable also to producers outside of EU. So in a nutshell, that's how it's basically going to affect the South African producers through regulatory compliance, which may come at a hefty cost, which may also affect farmers' farmers and exporters' profitability, and so forth.
Can you tell us what are the requirements for the EU Green Deal?
Thanks again, Mia, for that question. So basically, as I've alluded earlier on, that central to the EU Green Deal is the farm to fork strategy, which is envisaged to assist the EU to actually achieve sustainable agro-food production while reducing greenhouse gases as well as combating the negative effect of climate change. So it has several strategies or objectives that are envisaged to be achieved by year 2030, and these include, among most, increasing land that is under organic agriculture by at least 25% of available agricultural land, but also reducing overall nutrient losses as well as the overall nutrient losses by about 50%, as well as the use of fertilizers by 20%. But it also touches into reducing the risk of the use of pesticide, as well as as well as the use of hazardous chemicals by approximately 50%. So. These are some of the strategies that are proposed under the farm to fork strategy, which is central to the EU Green Deal.
Yes. You mentioned earlier about cost implications. Can you elaborate a little bit more? What will that specifically mean for the farmer or the producers?
Yes. Thank you so much. As I alluded earlier on, transitioning to these new proposed practices or strategies will have substantial implications in terms of production cost for farmers, because it touches in terms of the different strategies of producing, but also in terms of input usage.
Yes.
Like it touches in terms of reducing the use of fertilizers, but also reducing the use of some of the pesticides. So transitioning to these new practices, will necessitate, the change in terms of how producers are currently doing things, which may have cost implications in terms of when they transition, as well as also in terms of regulatory compliance.
Yes.
Because as I indicated earlier on, that given that there is something called the mirror clauses, it means that also farmers may also lose the market share in terms of tapping into the EU market if they do not comply. So
yes.
in a nutshell, that's how it's definitely going to affect the producers.
Can you tell us, why is the EU such an important trade partner, to be specific?
So basically, South Africa's agricultural sector is export oriented. We export over half of what we produce as a country. And to several regions, and that makes the sector essential not only for creating employment opportunities and safeguarding food security within the country, but also in terms of generating foreign earnings. And that makes international market access a key priority for South Africa's agricultural sector.
Yes.
But more than that, specifically to the EU is one of our major trading partners. It is ranked dead after the African continent as well as Asia for our agricultural products, accounting for a share of around 19% of South Africa's agricultural products, which are mostly your horticultural products, such as your table grapes, citrus, stone and plum fruits, as well as wine.
Yes.
So that gives you a picture of the importance of this market to South Africa. But also remember that South Africa is, along with other SADC member states, they are a beneficiary to the SADC EU Economic Partnership Agreement, which provides duty-free access for majority of our exports to the EU market, and also that adds to the importance of this market in terms of ensuring market access for South Africa's agricultural products within the EU. It's duty-free.
Bhekani, I just want to make sure I understand it completely right. So if South African farmers, if they comply, will this secure or increase future exports?
Yes, definitely, because globally, given that consumers are all over the world, they are increasingly being environmentally and sustainability conscious. So there is a shift towards more demand for sustainably produced commodities. So more than just complying with the EU standards of sustainably produced commodities, also all over the world, there is that growing demand for sustainably produced commodities. So this means that if we comply, we are more likely to have a competitive edge over countries that will not be compliant.
Yes.
But also given that I indicated earlier on that South Africa is also a member of the SADC EU Economic Partnership Agreement, which allows that duty-free access to the EU market. This means that we will that duty-free access will offset some of the increased compliance cost due to the new regulations, and that gives us that competitive edge over non-SADC EU EPA beneficiaries.
Yes.
So in a nutshell, that's what I can say. Thanks.
I also want to know, are there any government or industry-led initiatives to support farmers or producers in aligning specifically with these new regulations?
Thank you very much also for that question. I think South Africa, just like many other countries, all over the world, we are a signatory to the 2015 Paris Agreement.
Yes.
Paris Agreement. So as a country, we are also driving towards, sustainable agro-food production, adapting to climate change, as well as reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So we've enacted a number of policies recently, just like the recently enacted climate change bill, as well as the national climate change adaptation strategy. But more than those policies that also ensure that we also align with the global requirements of or commitments to mitigating climate change. But we also have other sustainability initiatives as a country. For example, the Sustainability Initiative of South Africa, for example, CISA, which helps producers to comply with labor laws as well as environmental standards. So those are currently in place. But also as a country, we are also compliant with global certification standards, such as your global GAP or good agricultural practices. So as a country, I can say that we are also aligned and we are also transitioning towards, more sustainable agricultural production.
Lastly, I just want to know from you, what role does the SADC-EU Economic Party Agreement play in mitigating the impact of these new regulations on trade?
Thank you very much. I've indicated this earlier on that the SADC EU EPA agreement is actually of importance, given that it provides us with that duty-free access to the EU market.
Yes.
So so that means that by virtue of us being compliant, I think, and also being beneficiaries to this to this agreement, that means that the duty-free access may offset, some of the increased costs that we may have incurred due to our compliance. But also, if we are compliant, that means that we will have that competitive edge over other producers. But also, there's an important provision within the EU, within the SADC EU EPA agreement, which talks to capacity building, ensuring that the SADC member states are able to take advantage of the benefits under the EPA by providing them capacity building. So I think this is another provision that can be leveraged to ensure that SADC member states are compliant with these new regulations, such that they can continue to take full advantage of the of this agreement.
Yes, and also the opportunity, right? Bhekani, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.